Zach Bryan's brand new album, The Great American Bar Scene. The Great American Bar Scene is the 5th studio album by American singer-songwriter Zach Bryan. It was released on July 4th, 2024. It's funny that he released this on July 4th, but anyways. Eric, your thoughts on this album / this artist?
So I have to say, I've kind of been introduced to Zach Bryan in the past couple years. So I reviewed. I didn't review. I listened to an album before, and it was really good. Called Boys of Faith, which was great. And then I went back and listened to his older stuff. I think he's good. He's like, I would say he's like a folksy country artist. Like, I wouldn't say he's like full country. I wouldn't compare him to like country artists today, and I wouldn't compare him to country artists like Willie Nelson or anything like that, because he's not that. He's very like, it's almost like a Montana kind of feel country, like mountain style folk country music.
Okay.
If you can, if you can hear me out, I think he's good. However, and this is where people I think might come at me here for saying this, but I'm going to say it anyway because this is the Crossroads Music Podcast. Okay. I think he's like, a lot of his hooks, the like na 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 na,
Yeah.
na 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 na, like that's like in all his songs. Right?
Okay.
So it's almost like he's like the Ed Sheeran of country music.
Oh my. Okay.
Not the ginger part, but just the musicality part of it.
Just the copy and paste 4 chords.
The copy and paste 3 chords. Now,
3 chords.
That being said, he does admit that he is the 3-4 chord country singer, and he's all about writing songs. That's all he's about. And I would say the lyrics are pretty good. Like, he is a good songwriter.
Mm-hmm.
However, there's nothing musically like blowing you away in this, right? It's very easy listening to. Like, I can listen to him while I'm just like chilling, reading a book or something, right? It's just very like chill, relaxing country music. And he does have some like more upbeat songs, but it's generically chill folk country music.
Yeah. I get that.
So, in terms of this album, I wouldn't say it's his greatest work. I didn't mind it. I thought it was easy listening to. I thought that the song at the beginning was nonsense.
The poem. Lucky Enough poem. Okay.
Yeah.
I want to dive a little bit deeper into that, but why nonsense?
I wouldn't say, okay. I maybe I come on a little bit too strong here. I wouldn't say it wasn't like, I think it should have stayed in the album, but I don't think it should have been the first opening thing. I think it should have been like the end, like a little like, here's a little like closer to the album. Because I just think that it's just like, you have this playing and I'm like, what the fuck is this? Right? Because you're just like, because if I wanted to listen to poetry, I would go read poetry or listen to spoken word. Right?
Okay.
But
you didn't like it at the beginning.
I came in here, I didn't like it at the beginning, and now there's probably something artistic that I'm missing that I'm sure a fan is going to ridicule me in the comments.
The hardcore fans are definitely going to rip you apart.
Which I thoroughly invite. Let's go. Like, let's have conversation about this album. I get where he's going with this, and he always wants to be like a storyteller. Right, that's kind of
that's
like
why he has Bruce Springsteen on one of the tracks,
which is insane. That's a good song. I actually really like that song. And I thought Better Days with John Mayer was sick. I spotted that guitar playing from miles away. I'm like, this is John Mayer. I know it. So I think that should have been at the end, because I felt Mechanical Bull was a good opener for this album.
Oh, interesting. So you thought it was a bit too artsy to open up with a poem?
I thought it was.
Oh, okay. I don't know. I agree. On the first listen, I was like, why the frick is this opening with a spoken word section?
Mm-hmm.
But then multiple listens in, I was like, Actually, I sort of like this as the opener. It sort of,
Mhm,
for me, it set the tone for how the rest of the album was gonna go, because it was like the focus is the lyrics slash the storytelling,
mhm,
and I forgot about the lack of instrumentation for the rest of the album.
mhm,
That sort of, it sort of set the tone there, because I do agree with you, your point before. Like the whole album instrumentally is like lackluster. There's nothing
mhm,
really there that's gonna excite you. Um, Outside of maybe the John Mayer guitar playing, there
mhm,
wasn't really any like, oh, that's a cool drum part, or that's a cool acoustic guitar sound. Or, like, it was very sparse in terms of
mhm,
instrumentation, I felt.
mhm.
Um, but yeah, I did end up liking the poem at the very beginning of the album for me.
Interesting. I thought it should have been later on in the album.
Later on the album. No,
Now,
I could see that too. That'd be cool.
granted, I have listened to Zach Bryan before, so I kind of know what his feel for music is.
Hmm.
So, but I'm sure I'm gonna get ripped apart for saying that for sure. I know I am.
Um,
But I mean, vocally, he's good. He's a good songwriter
yep.
in terms of lyrics. Like he really like paints a picture, and he uses uh almost like Taylor Swift style lyrics
Yeah,
in a
yeah.
sense,
Yep.
right? Um, I think he's great. And what's crazy is I found this out actually this week listening to him. Did you know that he's actually born in Okinawa, Japan?
Really?
Yeah, he's not Japanese. Well, technically, I don't know if this counts because he
Well,
was born there because his dad was in the Navy and he was stationed in
oh,
Okinawa.
okay. So he's an army kid.
Yeah, so does that make him Japanese?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not
Isn't
by
that crazy?
not by like genetics, but like,
Yeah, by just place of birth.
yeah, by place of birth. Yeah.
Yeah.
That makes him
What's
Japanese.
insane, so as I was like reading his little blurb on Apple Music, it says hometown Okinawa, Japan. I was like,
That's
what the
hilarious.
hell?
That's hilarious.
Yeah, it's crazy. So then I had to find out why that was,
Hmm.
of course,
Yeah,
as one does.
yeah, yeah.
um yeah, but going back to the album, I think that Zach Bryan has better stuff for sure.
Ooh,
I didn't
okay.
hate the album. I actually enjoyed it. I enjoy his style of country. But I like and I should go back and say, like, yes, I'm using him as a comparison to the cookie cutter Ed Sheeran. However, I like him over Ed Sheeran,
You like him? Okay, okay, okay.
like Zach Bryan
Got it.
over Ed Sheeran.
Got it. Going back to your comment on his brand of country, this is sort of what I wanted to bring up.
Mhm,
I listening to this album, I was wondering how country this album actually is, because I know
mhm,
like he is advertised as a country musician, but when
mhm.
I listen to this album, I don't get a whole lot of country from him.
See, I that's interesting because I do, but I don't picture like country like in Texas or like Nashville, or I picture somewhere in like the mountains,
In the
like
mountains. Yeah,
Colorado
right, right,
or
right.
like Montana,
Because
right?
like
Like so,
when I was listening to this, I was like, this falls more into like a Chris Stapleton almost folk Americana type of music
yes, yeah,
rather
no, that
than
I would accept that. I would accept that. Yeah.
country. So like there were definitely country elements in here, and one thing I did appreciate, and you know this about me, but there were no real country tropes on
Hmm.
this thing. There were no pickup trucks or like
Yeah.
freaking drinking beers and fishing. Like there was none
Hmm.
of that shit. But then I realized without those tropes, is is it too far from country now?
Yeah. So, well, that's the interesting thing because then is a Willie Nelson country because he doesn't really fall into those tropes.
Yeah, but he's definitely country. He's like an outlaw country
Mhm.
genre.
So like
I
when I
don't know.
listen to this album or Zach Bryan, I picture like Yellowstone, like the show Yellowstone, where it's like
Okay.
Montana and it's like cold and you're like at a campfire, like you're at a ranch or
Yeah, yeah.
something like that. That's what I picture this album being.
Got it.
Like this is that's that type of country.
Got it. So yeah, it's an off-brand or a subgenre of country music.
Mhm.
Yeah, I don't know. When I listened to it, I was like, how country is this album really? That you would consider him to be a country artist. But yeah, okay, I see that argument. I see that argument. Makes sense. Especially because like
Doesn't mean I'm right, but
yeah, but like I guess I guess the question is like if not country, where else would you put him, right? Like what other genre does he actually belong in? Because I think this was very similar. And I don't want to bring this up again, but like Beyonce's Cowboy Carter, like I felt like this was like slightly more country than that album, but it was in the same vein of like, is it country?
that is the theme of this year's
I know.
podcast,
I
Cowboy Carter.
know.
There's going to be a conspiracy about us in the future about people like the whole Spotify thing. They're paid to say Cowboy Carter to promote it.
Taylor wants us to leave Beyonce alone. It's okay. Beyonce doesn't care about what we say. It's fine. Anyways, on the album, I think the songwriting's great. Instrumentation is very sparse. There's nothing really interesting in terms of instrumentation. You're really listening to this album for the lyrics and the songwriting, the storytelling. My favorite song on this album, and I couldn't stop like humming it for like days on end, was Oak Island.
That
6.
song is my favorite on the album.
There you
too.
go.
It is fantastic.
This is such a good song.
Yeah. He's really good at just pulling a song together, which is great in terms of lyrics. Like you're not like, if you go back and listen to his other albums, you're going to agree with me saying that, oh, this all sounds the same. Because it does. It does, but his storytelling is really good and it's really spot on, and he's really good with his words and everything like that. And that song, hands down, is perfect.
Nice. It's funny that we both pinpointed that song, but yeah, Oak Island, it's such a good song. I love just like hitting repeat on that thing. So good.
Oh yeah.
I think the one thing I didn't like about this album is the closer, Bathwater. Not that I didn't like the song, but I thought it was too short of a song to be a closer, and two, it was a weird song to be a closer. There should have been some other like song to be in that spot, because I felt like as soon as that song ended, I was like, "That's it? What happened?"
It did feel like an abrupt ending to the album for sure.
Yeah.
So and I don't know whether or not like, could you like, how many songs are on this album? 19 songs.
Yeah.
Like there's probably a couple songs in here that you could have done without of.
Yeah, I agree with that. Well, I mean, I liked all the songs individually. It's 19 tracks. I think it's just over an hour, somewhere there, 60 minutes and a few minutes. I think if we were to rearrange it, I would be inclined to agree with you to move the poem to the closer, because that would have been a pretty cool closer. Even though I did like it as the opener. But yeah, now that you mentioned that a lot of the songs sound pretty similar, I hear that now. They're all sort of blending together for me.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like, if we're rating this on the common listeners to this, and we're recommending this album to a common listener, I think that's where the poem hinders them, because somebody's going into this being like, "What the hell is this?" and they might get bored and just not even listen to the album.
Right. They're
Whereas I
it's
think
like a Lou Reed type of album or something.
Yeah, and I think the closer would have been perfect, because yes, Bathwater is very short, and I wasn't really a fan of how it ended. It was kind of like, oh, that was weird. It's over.
Yeah.
Even though it's a pretty generic length for an album, for it to be within that hour range.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So I think ending with the spoken word is kind of like a nice little like closer, right?
Yeah.
So maybe I kind of like it because like Brad Paisley kind of does something like that. It's not poetry, but he has the what the hell is it? Sundance and the Buckaroos or something like that. And it's like this little like almost like cartoon character, and they have this like story that happens at the end of every album and they kind of interlink each album as you follow the story or
Okay.
whatever. So like that's kind of a neat like closer. But if they opened with that, everyone's like, "What the hell is this?" Right? So
Um, Final thing before we move on to final thoughts and ratings. Going back to last week's episode about how Canadian is a Canadian song, one of the tracks, "The Way Back," written by Bryan Adams. Would you consider
really,
track 9, "The Way Back," a Canadian song?
let me look at the lyrics quickly. I need
It's
to.
yeah, the song is written by Bryan Adams and Jim Valance. But performed by Zach Bryan, recorded by Zach Bryan, recorded in a US
That's
studio.
interesting.
So, is it Canadian? I don't know.
I would say it's Canadian.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like if it's written by a Canadian, I think it's
Mhm.
a Canadian song regardless of who performs it or records
Yeah, no, that's a good. Yeah, I would say it's Canadian
it.
for sure.
Anyways, a little tidbit, Bryan Adams writing credit on one of the songs on this album.
Right
Uh
on. I did not know that.
okay, final thoughts and ratings. What are you going to give this one?
I liked it. I had like it wasn't anything like crazy. I enjoyed. I enjoy Zach Bryan. I like him. I'm gonna continue to listen to his music. However, I'm giving this album a 7 out of 10.
A 7.
A 7 out of 10, and
Damn.
it's mostly because I would have given it higher if it was my first listen. If this was my first kick at the cat listening to Zach Bryan, I would have given him a higher rating. But because it sounds like his older stuff, I'm like, okay, that's cool. It sounds the same. It's like, and that's why I'm using the Ed Sheeran reference.
I see.
So,
Well, you have perfectly predicted my score because I'm going to give it a 9 because it is my first listen to a Zach Bryan album.
ooh, close.
I'm giving it a 9 because I think it's really great. I think this album is
Mhm.
great. I'm not a fan of like the lack of instrumentation, to be honest, but I think the storytelling, the songwriting alone, like
Mm,
it's enough to carry
damn.
the whole album. Which I feel like my score will go down now if I start listening to his other albums and realizing this is just a copy and paste.
You're gonna listen to his other stuff, and then come the end year roundup, you're
Mhm.
gonna be like, I'm changing my score.
Yeah, I mean, this is
Mhm,
my first point of reference for Zach Bryan. So,
mhm.
as the first kick of the can, I think it's pretty great.
I think that for fans or people who want to listen, if they like this, go check out the album Deanne. It's his first album. It's unbelievable. It's awesome. I would give
Mm.
that a 9 out of 10 all day long.
Oh,
That
okay,
album. So yeah,
nice. Yes, Taylor, please listen to this album. It's actually a very
mhm.
good album. It's
You
very
would actually like this, Taylor. You would
uh
100%.
it's not like easy listening, but it's something you can put on in the background and it's
Mhm,
like it really sets a mood. It's really nice.
mhm,
Um okay, perfect. So 7 for you and 9 for me.
mhm.
That is our discussion on the Great American Bar Scene by Zach Bryan. So for those of you following along with us every single week, the album, the big album, I'm pretty sure everyone and their grandmas are listening to this right now. The brand new Eminem album, The Death of Slim Shady, Coup de Grace. I'm pretty excited. I have
Man.
not listened to anything from this album yet because I just want to listen to it in its entirety when I get a chance. So I'm pretty excited.
I've heard that this album's amazing and you have to listen to it in one go front to back. That's what I was told.
Okay.
So,
Okay. I honestly, even yeah, Jack is hyping it up. I just hope it's really. I mean, his previous albums have been actually very good.
mm.
So I'm ready. I'm ready to listen to it. But yeah, we'll be discussing the brand new Eminem album next week. If we give it a really bad score, Eminem will probably come and murder us in our sleeps. So
Mhm.
there's always that.
And then his new album will be The Death of the Crossroads Music Podcast.
Yeah.
Oh,
All right, perfect. Well, that's it for this week on the Crossroads Music Podcast. We're here live at twitch.tv/the Crossroads Music Podcast. We're live here every Monday at 10 p.m. ET, 7 p.m. PT. Catch us on Apple Music, Spotify, all the places where you get your podcasts, YouTube for all the album review highlights, and the Discord if you want to come yell at us. But that's it for this week. Thanks everyone for tuning in, and we will catch you all next time.